President Cyril Ramaphosa says global leaders are not moving fast enough or boldly enough to address issues of rising debt for African countries and other poorer countries. He also says these leaders must move fast in addressing slow and uneven economic growth, inequality, and climate change.
At this time of global uncertainty and escalating tension, it is now more important than ever that the members of the G20 should work together. The erosion of multilateralism presents a threat to global growth and stability. We know from the experience of past decades that a fair, transparent and inclusive rules-based international order is in the end an essential requirement for economic stability and for sustained growth.
Ramaphosa made the comments as KwaZulu-Natal picks up the pieces after being battered by devastating floods that left a trail of destruction and death. One of the challenges that were discussed here at the G20 and the Finance in Common summits. This summit has been attended by the biggest climate bankers in the world, who control $28 trillion worth of climate finance.
Multilateral cooperation is our only hope of overcoming unprecedented challenges, including slow and uneven growth, rising debt burdens and levels, persistent poverty in many parts of the world, and inequality, and the existential threat of climate change.
At the Finance in Common Summit, Finance Minister Godongwana reiterated COP29 data that shows that emerging economies like South Africa will require just over $6 trillion to meet climate change finance goals.
I must say the critical thing facing emerging economies is capital. It's capital and the cost of that capital. Much of the debate, for instance, has been focusing on the African continent, on the amount of debt that we owe and how we should be forgiven for that debt. It has been taken into account that debt is not a problem on its own. That's why the emerging economies have got, no one worries when they've got a debt 100%, more than 100% debt to GDP. Because the problem is not the size of the debt, the problem is the capacity of the economy to service that debt.
The Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank says African nations can take a leaf out of their counterparts in Asia.
By investing in sustainable infrastructure, we prevent the worst of climate change. We prevent the repeat of many of these tragedies from happening. So that's number one. Number two, with climate finance, we can invest in resilient infrastructure, local adaptation, stronger roads, better power lines, better hospitals, so that all these critical services remain in operation during this time of crises where they are most needed. That is where resilient, sustainable infrastructure comes into play, and climate finance will play a part.
The G20 and Finance in Common summits continue on Thursday. They will be tackling issues such as economic growth, unemployment, and geopolitical tensions. These include threats that have been made by US President Donald Trump, which could leave global trade rattled, something that has become prominent at discussions here at the G20. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Xolani Mbanjwa in Cape Town.